Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World. Congratulations to Arizona Horizon, winners of 10 2018 Telly Awards, including 4 for student-produced programming. Arizona Horizon continues to be your award-winning source for local news, politics, and public affairs. Coming soon to Arizona PBS.
Our planet is home to 30 million different kinds of animals and plants. On land and in the water, these living things have adopted amazing ways of surviving. It's the epic series filmed in habitats across the world, uncovering behavior that is both extraordinary and bizarre. The story of life.
Monday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
2 Muslim players join a nationalist Israeli soccer team. But their outraged fans threaten to tear the team apart. Forever Pure.
Monday at 11:30 on Arizona PBS.
It's time to select America's favorite book in the Great American Read. Come to the website and see our collection of America's 100 best-loved novels. The voting is open now. I'm Meredith Vieira. Help us choose America's favorite book on the Great American Read.
Coming this fall to Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from...
I'm David Goldstein, owner of Biltmore Loan and Jewelry. We buy or loan on upscale assets. We have over 30 years of experience in determining values of automobiles, jewelry, art, collectibles, and antiques. For more information and appointments, BiltmoreLoan.com.
From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
2 high-profile suicides in the last week, leaving people asking, how does this happen? We take a look at ways to prevent suicide and protect those we care about.
More than 36 children die in hot cars every year. We take a look at a new app made right here in the Valley, helping you remember who's in the back seat.
Taking action to protect the millions of Americans who access medical marijuana under state law.
New bipartisan legislation proposes less federal regulation of marijuana, and the bill may be backed by President Trump. What this means for Arizona.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Cariño Haro.
And I'm Sam Hoyle. Thank you for joining us. With the recent suicides of 2 celebrities, it is important to watch out for mental and physical health. As Cronkite News reporter Allison Snell explains, knowing what to look for and how to help can save someone's life.
Thank you, Sam. Both style icon Kate Spade and celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain ended their own lives this week. I talked with mental health experts who want people to be able to recognize the signs of depression.
The idea of there's hope and there is help out there.
Reaching out can be one of the first steps towards suicide prevention.
A non-judgmental open ear. To talk, and for someone to just be able to listen to them about what's going on and in the world.
New technology gives more ways than just calling a hotline to get help.
But there's also new apps that help connect people to even counselors or other supportive services. And I think that's one of the main things that we have to also keep in mind with these apps is that coping skills and learning how to kind of manage our emotions is really important, and regulating our emotions and learning those skills really important. But we also have to remember to encourage people to reach out and connect to other people.
Music can also help in coping skills and awareness.
Last year, the rapper Logic wrote a Grammy-nominated song, and the title of it was, in fact, The Lifeline Number. So that brought a lot of publicity to the number.
Experts say that reaching out does not make you weak.
The fact is we can struggle and still handle life.
So we want to make it as accessible as possible, so we consistently, take a look at the volume of calls, where they're coming from, and looking at the strength of our network to make sure that those calls all get answered.
Paying attention to both mental and physical health is key.
Where if you just address the emotions and you don't address the physical part, a lot of times those symptoms don't resolve without looking really at the whole person.
If you need help, you can call 1-800-273-TALK, or you can text CONNECT to 741-741. In the broadcast center, Allison Snell, Cronkite News.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that nearly half of all people who die from suicide have a diagnosed mental health condition. So much still needs to be done to address this issue. As Cronkite News reporter Ariana Bustos reports, Arizona lags behind most of the country for access to mental health care.
A minimum of 50 beds per 100,000 people is considered necessary to provide care to people with mental illness, according to the Treatment Advocacy Center. The average number of beds per 100,000 people in the United States was about 12 in 2016. For Arizona, it was 4.4. But John Snook, executive director of the Treatment Advocacy Center, said Arizona is trying.
I think there's a recognition of that as a problem, and there are some ideas that the state is looking to that are really working. And so there's opportunities there for the rest of the state to say, let's try to make that happen here as well.
Mental Health America ranks states based on access to mental health care. In its 2018 report, Arizona ranks 49 among states and the District of Columbia. Heidi Capriati, Public Information Officer for Arizona's Medicaid program, said the report doesn't take into account Arizona's unique programs like peer support and crisis response.
As we begin to look at this broader picture of how we serve our communities with different resources, again, that aren't necessarily considered in the methodology of how MHA does their report.
Paul John Frito, President and CEO of Mental Health America, said Arizona had to make up for lack of funding in the past, which may have actually made better programs that are not counted in the mental health ranking.
I also think that Arizona, because in some respects, it didn't have the healthcare delivery system that was built basically with the support of Medicaid dollars, had to explore alternatives to traditional services.
Snook said despite shortcomings, Arizona has a positive outlook.
There's some really innovative and exciting things happening. So I would say that Arizona is one of those places I would look to and say, this is somewhere to be excited about.
Reporting from Washington, Ariana Bustos, Cronkite News.
The Mesa Police Department is reviewing its procedures and training after 2 incidents of officers allegedly using excessive force. Both incidents came during the arrest of African Americans. Right now, the Mesa Police Department says 7 officers have been placed on administrative leave. The department has released body cam video of both arrests. Today, Police Chief Ramon Bautista said he is bringing in a third party to review their current policies.
These investigators will shine a glaring light on the areas where we have fallen short, and they will help us fix it.
The mayor of Mesa released a statement tonight saying the body cam videos are alarming and deeply disturbing. He hopes that independent investigations launched today will result in better training. Meantime, Black Lives Matter Arizona will hold a protest tonight at the Mesa Police Department.
Earlier this week, miners held a rally outside the state capitol in an effort to keep the Navajo generating station from shutting down. Tonight, they could be one step closer to keeping their doors open. A company called Middle River Power, based out of Chicago, is putting together a proposal to buy the power plant. It would then be analyzed by the Central Arizona Water Conservation District. The Navajo generating station employs hundreds of Native Americans. The chairman of the Hopi tribe says the tribe gets about 85% of its operating budget revenues from the Northern Arizona plant. He claims a closure would be an economic disaster. Currently, the power plant is slated to close at the end of next year.
This week, the Arizona Court of Appeals ruled against the owners of a calligraphy business that denied service to same-sex couples. The owners said it went against their freedom of religion. The court sided with the Phoenix ordinance that prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. The ACLU of Arizona released a statement in part. This decision in Arizona helps affirm that discrimination in Arizona has no place in businesses open to the public nor in our Constitution. Attorneys for the calligraphy business plan to file an appeal to the state Supreme Court. Set the alarm early this weekend if you want to get outside and enjoy yourself.
That's because the afternoons will be brutally hot. Forecaster Roger Ratley takes a look at the next 72 hours.
It was another brutally hot day in the valley. In fact, today we hit a high of 107 degrees. That's above average for us because normally we're around 102 this time of year. but at least we didn't hit that record temp of 115. That was back in 1985. As we head into the weekend, things are going to stay hot. In fact, on Saturday, we're projecting 109, and that could easily turn into 110. On Sunday, we're looking at 107, Monday 107 again. For a full forecast, stay tuned. I'll be back later in the show.
The temperatures aren't the only thing rising in Arizona. So are the chances of your child getting heat stroke if left in a parked car. Reporter Emily Richardson spoke with a Phoenix father who created an app in hopes of preventing any more children from dying in hot cars.
Aaron O'Connor says he created the Backseat app because he was tired of reading stories where children died after being left in hot cars.
And if I can save a baby from, kidney failure, lung problems, severe brain damage, or death, then that's the goal.
According to NoHeatStroke.org, Arizona is 4th in the country for number of pediatric vehicular heat stroke deaths. In July of 2017, 2 Phoenix children died in hot cars, only 1 day apart. And for Aaron O'Connor, that was the last straw.
It's always just personally, deeply, deeply bothered me. And last July, I thought, enough is enough. There's got to be something that can be done.
He began working to create an app, making it near impossible for a child to be in a car long enough to create health issues. The app starts itself when it detects a speed of 20 miles per hour, but stays dormant until the car has stopped for more than 3 minutes. It sends the initial alert reminding the parents that they have a child in their car. If that notification goes ignored, 3 minutes later, the app will start a rapid-fire alert system. Roughly 5 minutes later, the phone will override vibrate mode and go fully autonomous, getting louder every minute on the minute until finally it alerts 3 designated safety nets where the car is so they can get help.
The other systems on the market have alerting systems to the user, but when those fail, we end up having a news story.
Ariana Medell was a part of a research project evaluating the impact of solar radiation on children inside cars and found that kids' core temperatures reach lethal levels relatively quick.
Over 50% of the cases of kids that die from hypothermia or heat stroke, they were forgotten in the car by parents for an extended period of time. So even if your car is parked in the shade, your kid will die within 2 or 3 hours.
The app is free, and since creating it, O'Connor has had multiple countries ask him to extend availability to them. In downtown Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
The Trump administration has traditionally been strict on marijuana.
But now the president could be breaking with his own administration's policy. Coming up on Cronkite News, the new bill to end federal restrictions on marijuana that could have the president's approval.
And engineering a cooler summer. The sustainability improvements that the city of Phoenix is creating to make the summer heat just a little bit more bearable.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem. Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
special honor today for Senator John McCain. The National World War II Museum in New Orleans gave him their highest honor, the American Spirit Award. The museum's president says Senator McCain has strengthened America through his service, philanthropy, and sense of community.
And let's face it, we're now in the opening shots of a trade war. This is more or less an unguided missile because the retaliation can occur in other sectors that really hurt the United States economy.
What's the end game with the White House? What's your plan? How do we get there? I don't want to undercut his position, but I would like to know how this movie ends.
Our allies are scratching their heads saying, what's going on?
We are friends and we are allies, and we feel deeply offended by this.
President Trump's tough tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and the EU have members of his own party concerned about a trade war, and they're not the only ones who are worried. On the heels of the tariff announcement, 7 world leaders are meeting in Canada this weekend for the G7 summit. Leaders from Canada, France, Germany, and the UK will likely give Trump grief about the tariffs and warn him that they could harm the U.S. economy. The tariffs aren't the only controversy the president is bringing with him. Before leaving the White House, he suggested Russia should be allowed to rejoin the group. Russia was expelled in 2014 after its illegal annexation of Crimea. Senator McCain opposes letting Russia back in. He released a statement today saying, in part, Vladimir Putin chose to make Russia unworthy of membership in the G8 by invading Ukraine and annexing Crimea. Nothing is done since then has changed that most obvious fact.
Before leaving for the summit, President Trump also told reporters that he would probably support a new bipartisan push to give states autonomy over marijuana regulation.
Taking action to protect the millions of Americans who access medical marijuana under state law.
Yesterday, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Cory Gardner proposed the legislation, which would prevent federal interference, giving states the right to determine the best approach to marijuana within their borders. Some nationwide restrictions would remain, including a minimum age of 21 for recreational purchases.
But passing a law that would make the decision of legalizing marijuana up to the states would not change the federal law. Reporter Amanda Mason has local reactions to the president's comments.
I spoke with former chairman of Proposition 205, J.P. Holyoke, and current owner of Independent Wellness Center that offers medical marijuana certifications. They believe it will help Arizona's medical businesses.
I think the big takeaway here is that the federal government is accepting and recognizing that we now have 46 states in this country that have passed some form of cannabis law, whether that's for cannabis sativa itself, CBD, or hemp. And all of those laws within those 46 states are in direct violation of federal law. So the federal government is simply catching up to what 46 other states have already figured out for themselves.
Let's talk about banks, and we'd be able to actually get a real bank account. For us, as a small office, that's huge. A real bank account that's not taxed tremendously because we decided to do medical marijuana and instead to help patients.
Arizona State Senator Olivia Bedford also weighed in with a statement that said, quote, the criminalization of marijuana has greatly and unfairly affected the minority populations of the country. I have complete confidence in my constituents and the voters of Arizona to make this historical decision and will respect their will when this issue reaches the ballot. Now, even changes are made, some U.S. restrictions would remain, including recreational sales to people under 21. In the Broadcast Center, Amanda Mason, Cronkite News.
The temperature of the valley continues to rise year after year.
It's a man-made problem that needs to be addressed. Coming up on Cronkite News, more pavement, more buildings, and more people lead to more heat. So what steps need to be taken to stop the urban heat island?
Are you sick of the heat yet? Well, things are going to continue to get even hotter. I have your full forecast coming up after the break.
The CBS Evening News, and that's the way it is.
Carrying on the baton of those who came before us, our superb team of journalists, writers, reporters, editors, producers work each and every week to tell the stories critical to you. For Arizona news that matters, tune into Cronkite News weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
State Route 377 is back open today between Holbrook and Heber. The highway was closed Monday after the 377 wildfire started just north of Heber. At this time, the human-caused fire has burned just over 7 square miles and is 55% contained.
Today, the Maricopa County Parks and Rec Department is taking an extra step to protect its parks. Smoking is now banned in all 11 parks in the county. The decision was made because of the extreme dry conditions. For the past month, there has also been a ban on campfires, charcoal, fire pits, and charcoal grills. These restrictions won't be lifted until we see some rain. And it doesn't look like that rain could be coming anytime soon. In fact, we could actually hit 110 degrees again this weekend.
Roger Ratley is in the Weather Center with a look at this weekend's forecast.
It's early June and already Phoenix has hit 110 degrees. If you think it's not getting much cooler at night in the city, you're right. That's due in part to the urban heat island effect. Reporter Amanda Mason explains the science and what communities are doing to reduce the heat this summer.
The urban heat island effect happens in cities around the world, where the metropolitan areas are hotter than the surrounding rural areas.
It's a result of the built-up area of cities that's constituted by buildings, by roads and other hard surfaces. This absorbs heat during the day when there's sunlight, and at night it releases that heat as radiant heat.
The temperatures overnight have raised upwards of 9 degrees over the last 20 years. So we're just now, if it goes up that high at nighttime, it doesn't cool as we're used to in the mornings when we get up to start the day.
In an effort to reduce heat, the city of Phoenix planted 3,000 trees.
When people are walking to our light rail, people are enjoying our downtown festivities, the trees will represent some respite for them along the way, cooling the environment, allowing them to have a good time even if it's 110 degrees outside.
Strategies to reduce heat are unique to each area. With the help of the Sustainable Cities Network, cities share the results with each other to find the best approach. One of the things being considered is how asphalt materials impact heat absorption. Even the color of the streets could make a difference.
It hasn't reached the materials lab as yet in terms of doing any testing. There's a lot of factors going into it, a lot of study has to take place because whatever we do in this city costs money, and we have to make sure that we're responsible. It's more than just a matter of painting a street white. I think there's issues of how long is it going to stay white. Here with the heat and the traffic, it'll pretty quickly, I think, start to turn black. And then what do you do with it after that?
In Phoenix, Amanda Mason, Cronkite News.
Phoenix is planning on doubling the amount of trees in the city by the year 2030.
In 13 days, the Phoenix Suns are slated to make the #1 pick in the NBA draft.
That's something the team has never done in its 50 years of existence. Coming up on Cronkite News, the Suns are weighing their options, and they could choose a young man who played high school basketball right here in the Valley.
because it gives us the opportunity to find a different angle on the same stories that every other news outlet is covering across Arizona. As students, we have the opportunity to cover issues in all across the state of Arizona.
Gives me a good chance to sharpen my skills, improve my skills, learn the techniques in a newsroom and in the programs and teamwork and technology, getting me prepared for the real world. And at the same time, I think we do a great job, make some great stories, do great journalism for the city of Phoenix and the state of Arizona.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
Officially from 36, and he hooks it in! Arizona State wins! Keeping one deep, and it is caught! Jalen Strong! Do you believe
June 21st will go down as one of the most important dates in Suns history. It's the first time the team will pick first overall, a potentially franchise-altering choice. Wednesday, DeAndre Ayton made his choice to be number 1. Today, Marvin Bagley III took the court at Talking Stick Resort Arena, and our Madison Curley was there.
DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic are often the names most linked to the Suns at number 1. But today, Duke forward Marvin Bagley said he hopes the Suns see him as the best player available. For the Tempe native, the opportunity to play in Phoenix goes beyond basketball.
Be able to be here and, to be on the court and work out with this team, and, that'll mean the world to me to come back and, just be in my hometown.
Landing in Phoenix would bring Bagley's roundabout basketball journey full circle. He grew up in Tempe, played 1 year of high school ball at Corona del Sol, then part of a season at Hillcrest Prep in Phoenix. He played his final high school season in Southern California before enrolling early at Duke. He was the top-rated high school recruit before heading to Durham. In his 1 season as a Blue Devil, Bagley earned first-team All-American and ACC Rookie of the Year honors. In the Broadcast Center, Madison Curley, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on PBS NewsHour.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour, on the ground for the G7 Summit, the meeting of leaders from the 7 most industrialized countries. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Arizona PBS deeply appreciates every gift we receive, and we are proud to honor our Executive Society. These supporters believe in the mission of public television and are making a real impact in our community. If you would like to join the Executive Society, please call the number below or log on to azpbs.org to join. Thank you.
Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World.
Hello, I'm Paula Kerger, President and CEO of PBS. We know that you have many choices on TV, and I just want to say thank you for choosing to watch Arizona PBS. In addition to offering the best of our national content, from the PBS NewsHour to PBS Kids, your station presents exceptional programs that focus on the issues important to your family and your community. As we look to the future, we promise that we will continue to offer content that educates, inspires, and entertains. Thank you so much for your support of Arizona PBS.
On land and in the water, these living things have adopted amazing ways of surviving. It's the epic series filmed in habitats across the world. The story of life.
Monday night at 9 on Arizona PBS.
From ancient scrolls in China to the majesty of the American West, landscapes help define who we are and who we'd like to be. Paradise on Earth, on Civilizations.
Tuesday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
The city of San Francisco has been warned of a hippie invasion.
They declared their rights to the freedom of body, the pursuit of joy, and the expansion of consciousness.
It was like arriving in Wonderland.
The Summer of Love on American Experience.
Tuesday night at 8 on Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from...
At Arizona Oncology, we know each cancer is unique, and so is every patient we treat. Our team is dedicated to providing advanced care, innovative technology, and personalized treatment options to patients right here in our community.
Arizona Highways Magazine is for people who strive to enjoy and are inspired by Arizona's unique outdoor experience, rich history, and diverse culture. Subscription information at arizonahighways.com/PBS.
Like you, we get up and go to work every day. We're on the job, keeping you connected at home, at work, and to what matters most. Others count on you, so you can count on us. We're here restoring power quickly when storms hit, even fixing issues before they happen. We're making solar more reliable, investing in battery storage, and constantly updating the grid. We're here working 24/7, keeping Arizona on.
Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalist Roundtable, Arizonans may be ready to raise taxes on some residents to increase school funding, and the bribery trial that includes the Corporation Commission, a lobbyist, and an East Valley developer. Those stories and more next on the Journalist Roundtable.
Arizona Horizon is made possible with the support of Arizona Highways Magazine, Escape, Explore, Experience, and by APS, working 24/7 to keep Arizona on, and by the contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalist Roundtable. I'm Steve Goldstein in for Ted Simons tonight. Joining us, Katie Campbell of the Arizona Capital Times, Howie Fisher of Capital Media Services, and Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital Times. The Invest in Ed initiative effort proposes to raise the income taxes of a small percentage of Arizonans, and a recent poll, Howie, indicates that 2/3 of Arizonans may in fact support this. First of all, let's talk about who could potentially be taxed here.
Well, Arizona has a tiered tax system, so you pay a certain percentage on the first 20,000 and another percentage on the next 30 and on and up. This says that if you are earning more than 250,000 as an individual, 500,000 as a couple, anything above that you would pay a rate in excess of 8%. And when you hit the 500,000, 1 million for a couple, you'd pay a rate of over 9% for that money. So we're down to about 1% of taxpayers here, which makes it interesting, given the poll says that about 65% of the people support it, which suggests that perhaps 34% of the people who wouldn't be affected don't support it.
Jeremy, what are the polling results at this point? We have to take it with a grain of salt, of course. It's not even on the ballot yet. We don't know. But based on this fact, does it surprise you at all? There were some who were saying income tax versus sales tax. How could voters take that?
I was kind of surprised to see the support being so high. And the poll, the methodology looked pretty good as a live caller poll. the turnout model may be a little off. I thought it may be undersampled Democrats even a little, which would possibly suggest support could be even higher. But that's what the support looks like now. Now, if this gets on the ballot, you wait till this campaign starts and see who's really spending money, because the Invest in Ed campaign so far has not shown a heck of a lot of money. The people who are going to oppose it, the Chamber of Commerce, Governor Ducey, that crowd, they're going to raise some money. If you remember a couple of years ago on the marijuana legalization measure, Governor Ducey raised about $5 million to stop that. You could very easily see something similar happening this year.
But you're assuming the money doesn't work against them. You remember the whole fight over legalizing payday loans. I think that the people who wanted to do that spent $17 million. The people who wanted to keep payday loans illegal spent like 47 cents. And you can work it against it. If you have the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and the Republican Governors Association coming out and spending a lot of money and saying, oh, don't worry, we're doing just fine with education funding, that is going to backfire.
Well, is Invest in Ed then relying on the goodwill of the public after the Big Red for Ed movement and whatnot? Are they expecting that to potentially counter a lot of money on the other side?
Potentially, yeah. And I mean, if I'm them, that's something good to have on your side. I mean, if you look at the public support for Red for Ed, for the teacher raises, I mean, it was tremendous. I mean, public sentiment seems to be overwhelmingly on their side. And, it's assuming that even if the chamber, the governor, all those folks have a lot more money, they might need exponentially more money to defeat this.
And one more quick point on that. This isn't that they tried to add $690 million to do something more than the raises. This is to say, are we sure we've got the money for the raises? Because Doug Ducey got his economists together and they butchered a chicken and burned the bones and said, here's how the economy is going to look. People lose a lot of money betting on the economy. This guarantees pretty much that we will have at least some of the money we need for the teacher raises and for the additional money for things like books and computers and things like that.
Howie, based on what you've seen historically, how does an income tax hike compare to a sales tax hike? And can we actually rely on history at this point, considering the Red for Ed was something a lot of us had never seen before?
Well, I think as an education measure, as Jeremy points out, I think it's got a lot of positive. People have voted for sales tax hikes before. They voted for it back in 2000 when we got Prop 301, which is 0.6%. They voted for the temporary sales tax hike to get us over things, even though everyone sort of knows it is regressive that people at the bottom of the income scale pay a higher percentage of their income to make this happen. Whether this is better or worse, I don't know. Again, the fact that 99% of the people won't be affected say, hey, that's great, I'm going to vote for this.
Jeremy, where are we at right now in terms of signatures? Do we have any idea how close they are?
We don't. I don't think they were willing to let us know how far they've gone now. They need about 150,000 valid signatures, which means realistically, you need at least 200,000, probably more, to get that cushion for invalids. They have a very short amount of time from when they started this very late in the campaign cycle. If you look at last year, the citizen referendum against the school voucher expansion, they collected about half as many signatures in almost twice as much time. So these folks, even though they're starting to hire paid petition circulators, they really have their work cut out for them.
Howie, one final question on this topic. So how big is K-12 funding going to be in November, especially if this is on the ballot?
Oh, I think even without this on the ballot, K-12 funding is the issue. I think everyone recognizes that despite the money being spent by people like the Chamber and APS to say, oh, everything's fine, nothing to see here, I think folks realize what's happening. When you have Fort Worth, Texas advertising to get Phoenix teachers to say, we can pay you $10,000 more, I think folks recognize this is a priority.
Katie, speaking of the opposite of nothing to see here, you attended a very busy trial this week that includes a former corporation commissioner, a lobbyist and his wife, a prominent East Valley developer. So what's going on in this trial?
Yes, so the commissioner in question here is Gary Pierce. His wife, Sherry Pierce, is also involved in this. And we have a very well-known lobbyist, Jim Norton. His ex-wife, Kelly Norton, is now the key witness for the government. And George Johnson, who is a very well-known but not especially well-liked utility owner down in Pinal County.
So what's at the core of this? There have been some talk about funneling money. There's been talk about bribery. What are some of the bigger words? Are these themes that are holding forward here right in the trial?
Sure. So George Johnson's business practices have been called into question before, and he is alleged to have bribed Gary Pierce through his wife Sherry Pierce for consulting work in exchange for favorable votes on the Corporation Commission, which regulates Johnson's company, Johnson Utilities.
So Howie, did this actually potentially happen while Gary Pierce was actually on the Corporation Commission?
Well, it did, and that was the point. And more to the point, again, I hate to use the word, the commission had rejected the two things that are issue here. First was the issue of can owners of utilities like Johnson Utilities pass along the cost of their personal income tax to the ratepayers? Commission had said no. Second was the value of the company. As you know, what companies can charge, what utilities can charge, is based on the rate base. In other words, if the company's worth more, you can charge more. All of a sudden, Gary Pierce is in there. Suddenly, we get new votes. Well, what happened in between, according to the theory of the prosecution, is this scheme to funnel money from George Johnson to Kelly Norton's consulting firm at the behest of husband Jim Norton, to Sherry Pierce, to Gary Pierce. Now, the defense is saying, well, it was only $31,000, so what could it be? Now, there was a land deal that never happened. It's hard to know what jurors are thinking. You know, Katie and I have been sitting there trying to watch the jury, and they're going through some of these paperwork details. You know, can you verify this check? And I can see the jurors' eyes fading back into their head.
Well, and to the point about the defense's case here is they really questioned that idea of Gary Pierce suddenly changing his mind and coming in. The timeline maybe doesn't match up quite as perfectly as the government would like it to, and the defense is really trying to use that to their advantage.
So how key a witness has Jim Norton's ex-wife been here?
Very. It's entirely inarguable that she wouldn't be the star witness for this trial, because she's gone on and said that, or she's really pointed out that she's had these personal issues in her marriage to Jim before they were divorced, but that she argues that that wasn't the start of the problems, that she was uncertain about this alleged scheme from the very beginning, and she kept all of these records, and she's been able to go through those records and really try to bolster the prosecution's narrative.
Yeah. Now, here's where it's going to get real interesting on Tuesday when Katie and I are back for cross-examination. One of the things that came out was that the divorce started because Jim had, quote, a girlfriend. And the prosecutor asked, was this the first one? She said, oh, no. Now, this certainly going to raise questions in the minds of the jurors. What about her credibility? Now, the good news is she's got a lot of documentation, these emails, these checks, and everything else. The bad news is, you know, a jilted wife, you know, what does that mean?
Sure, and a lot of this documentation, I mean, this is what the government is basing most of its case on. It's not all necessarily working out in the government's favor here. They're trying to portray this as basically a no-show job where George Johnson was bribing Gary Pierce through his wife for this job where she didn't really have to do any work. Now, a lot of these records detail this alleged work that Sherry Pierce claims she very much was doing it with her husband's help, surprisingly, even though he was supposed to be regulating Johnson Utilities at the time, but she was, you know, putting together reports, helping to put together, you know, organizations that were going to spend in elections that were going to help out, you know, George Johnson at the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, the Corporation Commissions. They were arguing, look, Kelly Norton's records show that I was doing real work, therefore it can't be a bribe.
Now, Jeremy, I want to take a quick step back, though, because people who watch Arizona Horizon, of course, follow the Capitol very closely, but give us a quick background on who Jim Norton is, just in case people haven't heard of him.
Jim Norton is a lobbyist, longtime lobbyist at the Capitol, probably one of the more prominent folks down there. He's been on a bit of a hiatus lately for obvious reasons, but he worked for a firm called Axim, had very close ties to the governor. He has longtime close confidant of Governor Ducey. Obviously not quite as prominent a fixture at the Capitol these days, but...
Katie, what about emails?
So, as Jeremy touched on, the emails are mostly between Kelly Norton and Sherry Pierce, going over things that she was supposed to be doing on behalf of George Johnson, which she was told to keep secret. It's important that they were told the client needed to remain, his identity needed to remain hidden. Sometimes they referred to him as just the client. Other times they weren't so good about doing that. They repeatedly said George, but Sherry was also to keep her work on his behalf, mostly in the core group there. But yeah, I mean, she was working to find a very specific kind of candidate to run for the Pinal County Board of Supervisors who would be willing to work on behalf of George Johnson or with him in terms of the things he wanted to see. And she was doing work. They've argued that she too has a lot of experience in consultancy, and so while it might not seem like a lot of work to you and I, it might have been a slow season for her.
And this is the thing, you know, people who are on consultant contracts doesn't require you to do work. You know, if I have a contract with, let's say, KJZZ, you know, if I don't turn out any copy, I'm still getting paid. And this becomes the issue here, that there isn't a requirement to show that you've actually done work. And the other thing is, in terms of her credibility, we're going to be hearing in the next 2 weeks from former Congressman Matt Salmon, current Congressman Andy Biggs, who have hired her to say, this is a woman that we can count on to do political work.
Could this trial have been averted? Did prosecutors actually offer a deal to some folks?
Well, yeah, let's back up even a step before that. This trial did not start with an investigation into this. This trial started with an investigation as to whether Gary Pierce was pressuring APS to put money into the Secretary of State campaign for his son, Justin Pierce. And it sort of, you know, went awry, and certainly, you know, once Kelly Norton suddenly decided that she didn't want to go to jail, as she puts it, it went in this direction. You're right, they were offered plea deals, but here's the other interesting thing, and Katie and I both saw this. In the case of Gary Pierce and the case of Jim Norton, they were offered plea deals where they'd get probation in exchange for their cooperation, which suggests the FBI may have some bigger fish to fry in this case.
And Jeremy, is APS potentially that bigger fish?
I would imagine so. I mean, 2014, the Secretary of State's race, this is the talk of Arizona politics, is why is this dark money group, which everyone assumed was APS because they were spending in other races where APS had interest, spending in the Secretary of State's race for one of the candidates who happens to be the son of a corporation commissioner who'd done a couple of pretty good turns for APS.
Katie, any final thoughts on that?
It's just going to be interesting going from here. We have a very long witness list, at least 3 more weeks left of testimony in the trial, so it's going to be a long ride.
So very soap opera.
Yes.
Okay. Jeremy, more soap opera from the Capitol. A man who was ousted by his fellow House members, Don Shooter, wants to be on the ballot again, got enough signatures to be on the ballot, but his residency is being challenged. Tell us about that.
Sure. Well, Don Shooter's residency has been questioned for quite a long time. He was a senator and later a representative, ostensibly from Yuma. He was known to own a home in the Valley and spend quite a lot of time there. So, as you mentioned, he got expelled from the House for myriad instances of sexual harassment a few months ago. Abandoned his campaign for his old state Senate seat. Some of his supporters talked him back into it. He turns in the signatures to get on the ballot, but the residency is a problem. He's supposed to live in Legislative District 13, specifically in Yuma. But on April 30th, he and his wife registered to vote in Maricopa County from their house in the Biltmore area of Phoenix. 2 weeks later, in the middle of this, he decided, I'm going to get back into the race. His supporters started circulating petitions. 2 weeks later, May 14th, all of a sudden he re-registers to